tenant or occupant provide feedback on your checkout report. So when the report's been completed, there's 3 different ways where you can obtain feedback from the tenant. The first way is just to complete the report without any feedback at all. So one reason you might do this is if you've done a checkout report and the condition cleanliness is very similar to when the tenant moved in and there's no maintenance issues, then you can just complete the report off and you don't need to send it out to the tenant because there's no disputes arisen. So that is a quick way to complete your report off. But if there are some maintenance issues and you just want to complete the report off without any feedback, then you can still do that, but you are risking the element of a dispute because you've not engaged with the tenant in any way. You can use the paperless tenant feedback process. So I'll show you more detail about that on the next slide, but you can send this report via the paperless process and it will allow the tenant to provide feedback on the report. I'll cover that in more detail very shortly. But the third way, which is really popular by some of our users, is that you can complete the report off and turn it into a PDF, and then you can just show this report to the tenant and have a common conversation with them. So you can highlight to them that there are some dent marks on the wall and you think it's a tenant's responsibility. So you can have a nice conversation with them, agree or negotiate with them if this is an issue and if a dispute needs arisen. So that is a really common way. And then if there are some changes you want to make to the report, you can then just redraft the report and make any changes after having your conversation with the tenant. So again, there is a future webinar about common ways and common reasons of why you would redraft and resubmit reports. So yeah, keep an eye out for that webinar, but this is a really good way to complete your report on a checkout process. But if you do want to submit it through the paperless tenant feedback process, then you can do that. So I'm just going to show you how to do that now. When the tenant gets a copy of the checkout report, they'll get an email just like this. They can feedback on the mobile, a tablet, or on the desktop site. So I'm going to just show you how that looks now. So the tenant gets the checkout report on email. They can click view the report and they can work their way through the report, very similar to a check-in. So they can see the utility readings, they can see the keys that have been photographed and tested, and they can have a look at some of the issues raised during the inspection. So in the ceiling here, the inspectors noted there's some mold marks on the ceiling. That's been highlighted here. There's some photos that the tenant can look at. They can agree to that. They can say, yep, that's my responsibility. I'll accept that. And then in the next room, they can see that on the wall, there's some paint marks and some dents. The tenant can disagree to that if they wish and say, let's say this was like this when I moved in. So they can add their comments in. They don't necessarily have to add in some photos on the checkout report, but their feedback will be sent back to the inspector for them to have a look at. The tenant can then sign, save and continue, and that will get sent back to the inspector for them to have a look at and respond to their comments. So they can respond through the paperless process like I've just shown you here, or you can just complete the report off and have a common conversation with them. So it's totally up to you.